Hello, it's Jason Renault with the Alternative Mobile Services Association. I'm here with Christina Arnold, who is the city councilor with Roswell, New Mexico. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and we're
Okay.
talking about the initiative Ms. Arnold has put forward, Councilor Arnold has put forward to the Roswell City Council to create a new mobile crisis team.
That is correct. Yes. It's been a very interesting uh, road just to get to this one point. It's kind of been about 2.5 years of research and work with our fellow commissioner, Chaves County Commissioner Dara Dana. So she's been my partner the entire time.
Well, it's great to hear that the county is right in there at the beginning
Absolutely, yes.
because you're looking at the how we're going to pay for this.
That's usually the biggest question that I get, yes. And that's, kind of been our road of research. And I will say that this is actually part of a bigger plan. It's just kind of one branch on a large tree,
Hmm.
which I'm happy to kind of go into as well.
Yeah,
Um,
tell us a little bit about Roswell. We all know 1947, but we'd like to know a little more. And what were the issues that brought this solution to the fore?
okay, so Roswell is a town of about 48,000. It's a small town. Back in the 70s, we were close to around 80 to 90,000. We had the Walker Air Force Base here, but in
Wow.
the 70s, the Air Force Base actually left Roswell. It closed down, and so the numbers changed. The dynamics of our community kind of started to change. And in the 80s, there was a huge focus on, attracting retirement, becoming a retirement community. And so it's just kind of had different evolutions over time. But at this point, we have a large focus on our UFO tourism, and we sit at about 48,000. Um, we just actually were um, the Reno Air Races actually selected Roswell as their home event center for their in-car, which is it's a really interesting aspect. But amongst all that positive stuff is the fact that our crime rate per capita is extremely high in the state and actually on a comparative national level. So to attract young business people to come in and invest and move to Roswell, those statistics stand out. That being said, so kind of when I started to run for office, I kind of picked four areas that I was going to focus during my term, and that was business development, crime, infrastructure, and antiquated laws.
Hmm.
And so when you kind of are working in those areas, you have to say, okay, where do the problems lie? And if I'm trying to build business development, I have to focus on the crime per capita rating. And that's kind of where I had the mayor actually appointed me to work with a state lady named Connie Vigil, who was trying to introduce jail diversion. And
Okay.
please know, I actually, my education is in criminal justice and in law. I'm a paralegal. And so that area is very interesting to me. And so I was happy to accept that request and started learning about jail diversion. And I brought Chaves County Commissioner Dara Dana in, and then we attended a summit we were invited to attend a summit by Judge Hudson. And Judge Hudson is a District 5 court judge here. He's a district court judge. And we went to a large summit by the AOC, which is Administration of Courts here in the state. And in that summit, we learned about jail diversion and how to implement it. And so the actual issue with that is if you're implementing jail diversion, and the courts have to be able to divert. They need a foundation of to divert to. So your community has to be set up to provide resources. One of those resources would be a community or a mobile response team. And so the mobile response that we are kind of trying to work towards is we have homeless here, but we also have we have a limited number of officers. And so how do you balance that out? What we look to do is create a community response team with a licensed clinical social worker that could effectively assist in a very, a different level of calls, or um, your low level calls. And that's actually our focus. So if we were to say a demographic, I wouldn't say there is a demographic. I think what we're having this team focus on is low level calls or crisis situations. And so in big cities, it's really interesting because they can, actually focus on one issue. Here, to have a team and to keep them busy, we actually wanted to utilize more areas, and that is mental health, domestic violence, suicide, just those type of calls, and that would actually keep the team pretty busy. And but so we we are finding that our county jails are actually filled with mental health, and our jail officers and our street officers are actually not licensed or capable or trained to respond to calls where mental health is a main issue. And what we're finding is that they'll actually respond to a call, and because they have not been given the tools to actually help that person because of their restrictions, um, they can't take someone to the hospital unless the person agrees to go. They can't really help. They really can't help um, at any level. So that's the beauty of this team. We could actually stop the following calls, like, because usually when they are called, you have a person that is in crisis, and the officer does the best they can to assist. And however, that ends up, the person stays in crisis, and then there tends to be 2 to 3 calls that follow. So you're actually diminishing the burden on our police department on some of these calls to continue, because also our fire department responds many times with our police department on certain calls. So we're utilizing a whole bunch of resources, and this team would actually push that down. And I think a lot of our goal is to create the team to handle certain calls, to kind of free up our fire department and our police officers so they can focus on like the heavy level calls. And that's kind of our main goal.
Yeah, it sounds like you had the wrong tools for the job.
As far as you mean the officers
Yeah, and the jails.
in the jail.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, the reason yeah, we don't have the right tools. But basically, our jail and our officers are just kind of working with what they have. And when we toured, because we toured Colorado Springs, we've had
Okay.
several go to Dade County for the jail diversion program
Okay.
there,
Good.
which is
Good.
a fabulous program. And so we started to kind of go, okay, we could be doing this a little different. We could be handling it different, and minimizing, the actually minimalizing how much money is going out to these programs. How much money is going out to these situations. So,
That's great. Now, talk to me a little bit about the political process. How were you able to convince your colleagues that this is a great idea?
well, so interestingly enough, I before becoming a city councilor, I actually spent my time working for a national nonprofit, which taught me how to actually get things through the government system. And so on this one, I was a little different, because normally I would just work on something and then present it. But this one, I engaged the Public Safety Committee to adopt creating a subcommittee to design and build this team. And so that was the first step in the process. We spent about 4 to 5 months having conversations. There were 2 other counselors, our Commissioner Dara Dana, and several of our community organizations were involved in kind of determining the initial makeup of the team. It would be ran by the fire department. It would be a hybrid program requiring a police officer, a paramedic, and a social worker to be part of this response team. And so we picked a lot of that detail and in these subcommittee meetings, and I pledged to the public safety that I would have a presentation and a resolution by February. And so, and that is what I did was I um, worked with them to create the resolution and the presentation, worked with the subcommittee, and it's just been a lot of feedback and a lot of looking into, okay, what is it our community needs? And so the resolution that was actually presented, because we could have created certain aspects of the budget and all of these small, minute details, but we really wanted the city engaged, the city administration and the fire chief and the police chief engaged in creating the policy and the minute details, that something that we might not consider because we're not out there every day, doing this. So that's why the resolution is a specific, just for those who don't know, I'm sure many do, but our city council is made up to where we actually don't have authority over the administration. The mayor does. And so in order to get something through, you have to have a majority of the council to give the administration any direction. So this was the first step in creating the requirement for the city administration, or basically the directive, please build this team. And that's where we're at right now. And it goes before council, I believe, on March, I think 13th. I might be wrong, but it's in a couple weeks.
So once this resolution is passed, let's assume it's passed, then it goes
Okay.
to the city manager for implementation.
That is absolutely correct. Yes. And I have a feeling the same subcommittee would be engaged with city officials and city staff to build it.
Uh-huh. Well, talk to me about these three entities that are participating. Tell me about each of their roles, the police, fire, and behavioral health.
So, of course, the police are there to initially respond and to introduce the paramedic and the social worker. We want to make sure that they're safe. We found other communities that have just the social worker, and that I'm not comfortable with sending any of our people into calls that they have no idea. So basically, the police officer is to initially respond and to assess the situation and make sure that they're safe. Paramedic is available to assist in any I guess making the medical side of it. And then the licensed clinical social worker is there to again assess and treat if necessary on scene, because that's kind of one of our things. We have people who are going to the hospital in a mental health state. Our
Mhm.
officers tend to have to wait with them for about 6 hours just till they are actually, taken up to our, it's called Sunrise, which is our mental health, unit. And so that's a resource that is actually being tied up. And so hopefully what we're looking at after studying Colorado Springs is the ability of the social worker to either treat and take care of the issue right on scene, and then or admit direct to Sunrise, because they'll have that ability, and then you actually have a quicker and more flow to the process. Also, the other beautiful aspect that we are looking at is peer support. Once we have the interaction with the resident, then there will be follow-up. So if they have a crisis or an issue, then it can actually be addressed at the scene, and then the team would actually then move this person to be in contact with our peer support. And that's kind of the idea, is to take the issue, address it immediately, and then work to resolve it over time, instead of acknowledge the issue, let it lie, and let it build and let it build and let it build, and then this person gets nowhere. So we're hoping to kind of stop the flow of things by providing not only support but solutions.
So both downstream, the
Yes,
emergency, the crisis, and then upstream, the peer support over time.
correct. Yes.
Good, good.
Yes. So that's what we've found to be where we're lacking is the actual peer support. Because if, I think one thing I do want to say is that Commissioner Dana and I, after we attended the summit in 22, it was the fall of 22, the first thing we did was we came home and started assessing what kind of resources we have in our community.
Yeah.
And we found that we actually have a lot of amazing nonprofits, but however, they're all spread out. They're all kind of siloed. They're all in
Mhm.
different places. And so for someone who's in a, in a situation and doesn't have a car, and this isn't just homeless. This is, we have a poverty level here and they need assistance as well. And so the problem in getting to the resources is actually getting to them.
Mm.
So one of the branches of our tree that I mentioned is a basically a center that has triage, that has a warming center and a cooling center. So that's the other aspect, because you can create the response team, but that team, of course, needs support as well. They need a place to take someone. So therefore, we're looking at creating the triage. This is just the beginning of that, getting all the branches lined up on that large tree.
So a third place to take people versus jail and hospital, some sort of crisis stabilization
Absolutely. Yes.
facility, and a place people can hang out for a while and just, be safe.
And regroup and meet with the peer recovery. Also, we're hoping to put all these nonprofits into one building. We don't want to take over what they do. This is more about the community running that place, not necessarily the government. We want them engaged, and many of them have said they've had hard time finding, place to rent. We have some
Yeah.
places in mind, and so, but if you can imagine, someone is in crisis and they can go to a facility. Uh, I always kind of call it gas up, where they can actually get some new clothes, get some food, get some help, like that's how I see it, just kind of going in and it's all in one location, and it makes a lot of sense for all of them to be together so we can actually resolve some of these issues that they're having and help them prosper a lot quicker.
That-
And so
that- That's the classic navigation center model where the entity, the city pays the rent, and those nonprofits come, they flock to you to provide services in that space where you're paying rent. Big
well,
box stores or empty grocery stores are good locations for those.
that is exactly right. And actually, the county actually has a large, large building. And
Oh,
that's why,
oh,
yes, so very exciting. And, if we talk about funding, that kind of took a minute because our entities, our government entities don't necessarily have the funding to just, pay for this.
yeah.
So we started identifying programs that would have, grants and other funding outsourced outside of our general funds. So the county actually, if we can get that to move, that county building would be very helpful because you're exactly right. You just provide that and they come in there, and we're going to have a program director that oversees the large version, in this community response team would be directed by that program director.
And have you had any contact yet with the state of New Mexico, with its Medicaid director or with its behavioral health services? Are they supportive?
Um, so actually, that was another aspect of what Commissioner Dana and I did is we traveled to Santa Fe multiple times to a visit with our, the legislative leadership, administrative leadership, and working to find out solutions. And that was all part of that initial team with that I was assigned to by the mayor. Um, we kind of were what we recognized in the beginning, and this was in 2023. What we recognized is that our state was a little apprehensive to kind of make a decision on because we only have one mental health facility in our entire state. And so we are very behind when it comes to providing mental health long-term treatment for anyone getting into that facility is difficult and it's very far away. So we don't have that's a huge resource that's lacking. And I'm actually happy to report that actually I just found out this morning that our governor signed the three bills that were mental health bills, helping to fund solutions or fund facilities and fund programs exactly like the one we're trying to start now, the community response team.
Well, that's
So,
great. It does seem to be a magic moment to do something other than using the old tools to fail over and
right.
over.
Well, and it's just, leaders taking a moment to be mindful and cognitively understand that, okay, let's assess, is what we're doing working? Is this, a pattern of insanity, or do we need to try something different? And you start small with trying something different. And that's the hard part, is sometimes you have leaders who are getting nervous about implementing something new
Yeah.
because of all the variables. And I'm not afraid of much, so so I'll just try. I'll continuously try.
It's always a good strategy at the beginning of these conversations is to figure out who's insane and who's not insane.
Well, yeah, but also who's complacent, because sometimes that's actually the work that comes with it is what scares people, and it's normal and it's okay, but in order to create positive environment and a beautiful place for our residents to live, we have to work hard.
Well, Christina, I wish you the best of luck,
Thank
and
you.
I hope you check back in and tell us how it's going.
Well, no, absolutely. I'm absolutely excited to do some research on your organization, and I can't wait to go back to the subcommittee members and say, "Oh, look what's out here! Yay!" So yes, you'll we're gonna dive in, and you're gonna probably definitely hear, and hopefully we can get the administrate once this thing passes, and I'm going to be very positive on that. It's going to pass, but once we get it through, then we will definitely encourage our administration to create a relationship with you and the other cities that are your members.
Well, thank you so much, Christina.
Absolutely. You have a beautiful weekend. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Bye bye.